screen. You can type your question into the dialog box at the bottom of the screen and click the send button. And then be sure to address any of your questions to the specific panelists so we can navigate to answer them. If the Q&A panel is not visible, clicking on the navigation button with the 3 dots at the bottom of your WebEx screen should allow you to bring up more options, and there should be a Q&A button there. That will bring up the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of your WebEx screen. So just another reminder, we are recording this meeting so it can be shared with all attendees, and a link for the public. So now I would like to turn the call over to DMME's Energy and Regulatory Program Manager, Larry Corky, who will be reading the Virginia General Assembly's Act of Assembly Language. Larry, take it away.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I would like to establish that our meeting today qualifies as an electronic meeting. Please listen carefully to the following information. Earlier this year, the General Assembly passed and the Governor signed into law language providing a greater allowance for public bodies to meet by electronic means than is found within the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. This language is found in Chapter 1289 of the 2020 Act of Assembly, which became effective on May 21st, 2020. As used in this context, an electronic meeting is a meeting of a public body by electronic means when there is not a quorum of the public body gathered in a single physical location. Our meeting today qualifies as an electronic meeting. The Acts of Assembly allow public bodies to hold electronic meetings when the Governor has declared a state of emergency pursuant to Code of Virginia Section 44-146.17. If 1, the nature of the declared emergency makes it impracticable or unsafe for the public body or governing board to assemble in a single location, or 2, the purpose of the meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the public body and the discharge of its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. The Acts of Assembly also has language regarding recordings and transcriptions of electronic meetings. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded. This recording will be available to the public through the Virginia Nuclear Energy Consortium Authority Board's website. The comments in the chat room will also be preserved as a public record. Official minutes of this meeting will be drafted and posted in accordance with regular procedures. Please note that the language of the Acts of Assembly does not allow a public body such as this board to hold an electronic meeting during a state of emergency to discuss or transact business for any purpose. Rather, it must do so as long as the purpose of the meeting is for an electronic meeting pursuant to the Acts of Assembly. If that motion fails, this electronic meeting will end at this point. The Acts of Assembly require compliance with the provisions of Code of Virginia Section 2.2-3708.2 that sets forth certain requirements with respect to electronic meetings. Therefore, in accordance with Code of Virginia Section 2.2-3708.2.d.2, public bodies must include a telephone number that may be used to notify the public body of any interruption in the telephonic or video broadcast of the meeting. If the disruption occurs, participants should contact Mrs. Brandy Fraser Bestpitch by phone at 804-692-0007. Additionally, if there is an interruption in the broadcast, the meeting must be suspended until public access is restored. The provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act not addressed by the Acts of Assembly remain in effect. Before we continue with the business portion of the meeting, I will ask Chair Tom DePonte to call the roll for members and anticipated staff. Other participants will be recorded through the chat window. If you are participating by phone and your name is not called, please call Mrs. Brandy Fraser Bestpitch at 804-692-0007. In addition, if at any time you lose connection and are unable to reconnect, please contact Mrs. Fraser Bestpitch at the same number. And I'll now pass it to Tom to call that motion to declare this an electronic meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. The Virginia Nuclear Energy Consortium Authority Board of Directors certifies that the nature of the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, as declared by the Governor of Virginia, makes it impracticable or unsafe for the board to assemble in a single physical location, and further, that the purpose of the meeting, including all agenda items as reflected in the meeting's prepared agenda, is to just transact or discuss business that is statutorily required or that is necessary to continue operations of the board and discharge of the board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Can you identify yourself just so we know?
Bill Briscoe.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Scott Koppel.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All opposed? And if you as the chair.
This is Grant Cronenberg. For the record, we need individual votes since we're doing this electronically, so people can identify themselves and give a yay or nay.
Okay. If it works, Grant, I can do a roll call to make it a little easier, so it's not a free for all. If that works.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Great. June Graycheck.
Yes, aye.
Ken Ball.
Aye.
Michael Lemke.
Aye.
Scott Koppel.
Aye.
Sean Agnew. Tim Stoller.
Aye.
Bill Briscoe.
Aye.
Let me see if we have any board members on the phone.
Woody Lawman's on the phone. I vote aye.
Thank you. And
This is Gary Tepper. I vote aye.
great. Are there any other board members on the phone?
Bob Bailey's online, and I vote aye.
Thank you, Bob.
I just unmuted another call-in number I saw, so all the call-in numbers should be unmuted right now if any board members are dialing in. Andrew Hutton. Sorry, I was getting some feedback. Andrew, can you vote through the chat box and send me your phone number privately? Because I'm not sure which number is yours. Here we go. All right. Andrew, you're a panelist now and should be able to unmute yourself. I'll unmute you. You're unmuted.
Okay, finally, I'm a real person. Yes.
Yeah.
I vote yes.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, I think that's everyone in attendance. I think that was unanimous. So the motion passed, correct? Okay. All right, thank you for that. Next, we're gonna move into the business of our meeting. We're gonna do a couple things that's a little different. I know we just went through this, but we also would like to call the roll just to verify that we have who we have on the phone. So when you hear your name, if you can just announce present, move forward. So Sean Agnew. Sean, are you there?
Yes, I'm here and present.
Bob Bailey.
Present.
Ken Ball.
Present.
Bill Briscoe.
Present.
John Capps, have you joined us yet? Okay, I know he was going to be a little late. David Christian. Hey. Larry Corky. Colleen Deegan. This is Tom DePonte here. Rich Diddums. Jean Graycheck.
Here.
Andrew Hutton,
Present.
Scott Koppel,
Present.
Woody Lawman,
Present.
Michael Lemke,
Yes, this is Michael Dooman, substituted for Michael Lemke today.
okay,
He's unavailable. I'm present.
okay. Jack Lesko, I do not believe will be joining us, but just in case. Okay. Tim Stoller,
Present.
Gary Tepper,
Present.
and April Wade. April, are you muted?
Yeah, sorry, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Great. So before we get fully kicked off here, I did want to, per our tradition, just go over a safety message. As this is a virtual meeting, I would just remind everyone, whether you're in your office or at home, just take a minute to look around and check the area around your desk there and make sure there's not any hazards or trip hazards or other conditions that could cause a safety concern. I think since some of us may be still working in non-normal locations as our offices, it's always good to take a look around. And with that, we will move to the approval of the past meeting minutes from our March 4th meeting. Brandy sent those out in advance, but why don't we take a minute now if folks would like to take another look at them, and if we have any changes or comments, we can entertain those. So everybody take a minute to take a look. Okay, does anybody have any comments or changes to the March 4th minutes that they would like to raise?
Hey, Tom, just a minor correction or change, however we want to characterize it. So I guess top of page 2, the House Science and Tech bullet, which we say advanced nuclear energy R&D bill, which includes NILA, we should say elements of NILA, which is factually correct and also consistent with how the other legislation was characterized. So
Yep.
since it's not a one-for-one, so
Okay.
it's elements of inserted before NILA in the House Science Bill.
I've made note of that. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Brandy.
Any others? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes with the change from Scott?
Yes, Andrew.
Great. A second?
Second.
Okay, that's Scott Koppel.
Yep.
Grant, do we need to do a roll call for approving the minutes?
Yes, there, any approvals do need to be by roll call.
Okay. All right. Andrew?
Yes.
Bob? Gene Graycheck?
Yes.
Ball? Ken Ball? Okay,
Muted. Oh,
you may be muted.
I'll unmute him. He's got it.
No, I got, sorry, my space bar is not responding quickly. Aye, yes.
No problem. Michael's not here. Scott?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Tim Stuller?
Yes.
And Bill Briscoe?
Yes.
Great. The ayes have it, so it is approved. Great. Okay, so next we're going to hop into the meat of the agenda. We're going to discuss the draft strategic plan for nuclear in Virginia. I'm going to kick this over to April to walk through kind of what's been done, where we are, and then we can launch into kind of a discussion. Everyone should have received a copy of the draft yesterday. We'll also have one here shared so we can go through specific sections that need to be looked at. But before I kick it over to April, I would like to just take a minute to thank her for really tireless efforts on this. There's been a ton of work that she and the VNEC board have done as kind of the coordinating body for bringing this strategic plan together. And I really want to thank them and April specifically because I think we're in a good place and we still have some time left and some more work to do, but there was a lot that went into this. So with that, let me turn it over to April to kind of walk through where we are and kick things off.
Thank you, guys. I hope everybody is doing well. It's nice to be here today. It's hard to believe March 4th was, I think, the last meeting I actually physically attended. So, but anyway, y'all have the draft. The governor signed all of our bills. So that means the strategic plan is something that we've been putting together. We had a couple ideas, but with the whole situation with COVID, we decided on doing a webinar kickoff series that we did on July 7th. We had several speakers, including Assistant Secretary Rita Barwell from DOE. It was well attended. We had, I think, a little over 80 people attend. And from that meeting, I asked and sent a link to a survey and asked for people's input on the strategic plan. And we did get a lot of feedback. I tried to incorporate that into the document that you all have. From the legislation, you know, the elements that were in the bill is promote new technologies and opportunities, establish a collaborative research center, and recognition of the role of nuclear energy in the Commonwealth. With those bullets and with the summit we had last August, we came up with what we called our guidelines. And make sure we, for the plan, have a focus. And I think that's worked pretty well, how we put things together. So now, I think Andrew sent some feedback. I really am interested to hear first impressions from you all on the document. I probably have looked at it a lot, so any fresh eyes I have, I do appreciate any comments. We have to have this to the state by October 1st. And so I'm going to open it up right there. I mean, Tom, I can go down to the next slide, but we'll talk about that next. I think right now is a good time to just get everybody's thoughts.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I do, if we can, we'll just spend a minute on this slide, everyone. April kind of walked through their approach. I do want to talk a little bit about our role as we get going, but really what we're looking to do is take a look at and get some initial comments today from authority members. There will be opportunity, as you see, to provide additional edits. over the next 10 days. And then we will look at a time in September to come back together to approve the final strategic plan so it can go and be submitted on October 1st. So with that, I believe, Brandy, we have the opportunity, we can share the plan document, but what I would like to do is ask for folks to, if they could, to raise their hand and provide any input or feedback that they have on their initial impressions of the document. So I already see Gene raising his hand, so take it away.
All right, sorry about that. I first want to thank April for doing a fine job putting this together, and just to camp on a little on Andrew's comment from yesterday. I think that one of the things that would be good to add to either the infrastructure or the R&D element is to be looking at nuclear applications that go beyond the traditional use for electric power generation. So there are a lot of things going on in DOE space right now in terms of hydrogen production and thermal storage and various things that are not the traditional conversion of nuclear heat to a spinning turbine. And I think that is an opportunity for Virginia to participate, and we ought to be mentioning it somewhere in the plan.
I totally agree. When Andrew sent that email yesterday, I was like, yeah, I don't know how we missed that in all of our conversations, but I totally agree with you. We will have that added.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Other thoughts or comments off the bat here? And if you want, we can, obviously we have the document, and we can look at specific sections and talk about that if it's easiest. Or if there's overall impressions, we'd love to hear those as well.
Looks like Scott has his hand raised.
Yeah, trying to follow instruction here. So, April, amazing job piecing this together. I can't imagine how many pieces of paper, and emails you got to sort through and cull through. So amazing in that regard. I just think, in general, I think we need the word deployment. I'm just looking at I read through this whole thing this morning and just started making notes, and we'll email comments in as instructed to which will be most helpful, I'm sure. But so again, I think this all comes down to deployment, and everything else goes behind that and builds to that, with sort of an end date in mind or a start date in mind as terms turning on. And then also, I think it's more than just, and it's mentioned in some places, but again, I'm looking at the executive summary now. It's not just developing infrastructure, it's leveraging infrastructure. We've got incredible assets across the board, whether it's industry or universities, really just Virginia's amazing in that regard in terms of being able to deploy. So again, I think, and I think it's mentioned later on, I don't know if it's a survey or asset inventory, is a key element here. So, why pay for something? Why ask the state to assist with something that we already have, that already exists, and leverage those, those elements that exist inside the Commonwealth. Beyond that, I'll stop there. Other things we can provide in writing over email. But those were the two things that struck me. And again, amazing job. I can't imagine how you sorted all this out and worked it into this. If everyone submitted, I'll call substantive comments and ideas, which I'm guessing pretty much everyone did. Kudos.
Thank you. I had a lot of help, so I'm very grateful for that. And the conversations that the board and input provided, and Tom. I could have done it without Tom, but I like your word leveraging. You're right on that. I mean, there's a lot of things we need to, Virginia has that we need to leverage. But on the assets, I mean, what are you seeing that we have? Are you seeing the document that VNECA has as the, our list of assets?
No, because that's a nice inventory. It's a long laundry list. I'm thinking of, what are the capabilities that we have today, whether it's, you mentioned this in certain places, whether it's ports, fuel fabrication, at various enrichment levels. I can't speak necessarily, I'm not as close to the universities, are there things they have from, maybe it's advanced computing, things that exist in the state where we don't necessarily need to go out to a national lab that's, not, in Virginia. Let's think of what's at home. That's what I'm thinking, those physical things that if we were going to do something as a company, what do we already have? What are those sunk costs, that already exist and are baked in? Or when we look for if you're looking for teaming partners, is everyone sort of on this team here to help get to the finish line, so deploying, a baseload clean energy, power producing resource, or for power consumption of some sort, like hydropower, hydro discussion and those kinds of things. Yeah. And maybe it's how we define it more than no, because I don't think the list that we have, the VNEC Authority list is what I'm thinking there.
Yeah, I don't think so.
That's a nice list, but I'm not sure that answers the mail when I going back to deployment.
And I agree with you. I just made me think that, as always, we want to, keep this document to a level, but I'm really thinking that we need to.
I agree. I think there's a way to do it other than just listing, what we do already with the VNECA asset list. So I think there's an area we can definitely weave that in, and it may be something that leads to kind of a further work with VDEP and others. So
yeah. Tom, I like the why Virginia. Just how it all fits together that way.
Yeah, because I think there's even going to be companies within the state that may not necessarily know what kind of partnership opportunities there would be just because they didn't know the capability existed, right? So, I've found that out even within my own company. So, anyway.
Good deal. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Other comments?
This is Sean. I haven't figured out how to raise my hand yet, so I'm just going to jump in, all right? I did have one little question. First of all, I want to start where everyone else did and congratulating you, April, in the face of ornery people like myself. You've done a great job putting together a really aesthetically pleasing document, and yeah, we're making refining comments now, but you've given us a great starting place, so thanks for that. One of the phrases that just grabbed my attention, it's repeated throughout the document, and so maybe it means something to everyone else on the call, but I think we also want to prepare for people like me, to whom it doesn't mean anything. What does carbon-free generation goal mean? And I just wondered if a descriptor like carbon-free energy generation, or someone off the street might wonder, why are we generating carbon in the first place? Or so I didn't know if that phrase is already baked into our policy culture, carbon-free generation. Anybody have an answer to that? Or should we be talking about carbon-free electricity, energy, etc.?
I think that's that's a good point, Sean. It might be worth in the background section just we talk about the specific legislation that was passed that laid the groundwork for this plan and some of the nuclear related stuff. But I think it would also be maybe important to have a sentence or two about the 100% clean by 2050 legislation that was passed as well last year, because that's really, that's the roadmap for electricity generation for the state for the next 30 years. And really it's the context within which a lot of this is there. So that's a good point. And we should probably talk maybe for a few sentences and make sure we're not assuming people know about that as well. That's a good point.
It is a good point. Thank you.
Bob,
There's one other thing like that. Oh, I'm sorry. There's one other thing like that. Late in the document, it uses a acronym CTE, which I couldn't find defined anywhere. What does CTE mean?
Oh, where is it at?
It's on the page.
Yeah. I'm sure it's career. I'm sure it's career technical education.
It is. It is.
So that would just need to be defined.
Yeah, I see where it's at. Okay.
So can I ask a question? I don't actually know whether this is something that should be in this strategic plan. So if it isn't, just tell me. I note that the Utah Power Consortium is sort of backing away from NuScale, the first reactor. Is that something Virginia could offer to host?
Yes, we definitely can. I will only tell you that I have connected EDP to NuScale. They have to do some of the work. The gentleman that I work with at the Economic Development Partnership, I know he is right now looking at talking to companies and wanting to get more engaged in talking to companies like NuScale, GE about Virginia.
Yeah, because we should be thinking in that case about putting in something about offering a site, thinking about where we would offer to put such a thing. I do believe that if we were one of the first to have such a thing, that would put Virginia, that would leapfrog us above many of the other places that are also pushing. But
totally
I don't know how that fits with the document, but I'll leave you to work on that. By the way, I'm not sure I said enough about how impressed I was with this document. Everything about it, the look, the feel, made me want to read it, which is, after all, the primary goal.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. I didn't want it to be a regular Word document. I wanted it to be something that an old boss told me, get people in 10 seconds. So that's what that's what I wanted.
And I think you achieved that.
Thank you.
Bob, did you have a comment? I thought you were leaning in there before, but.
No, I was actually looking at something in here, but I'm going to echo Andrew's comment about what a nice looking document it is and how well organized it is. I'm still kind of reading through it for about the second time right now. I might have a few minor comments that I will send to April, but in general, it's pretty inclusive and well organized.
Thank you.
Other comments? Son?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry to dominate the mic here, but I had another question, a clarification. So late in the document, key strategies page, it says promoting existing capabilities for export. What do we mean?
I'm trying to key strategies. I'm looking at the document. I should know all the For one, I think export is what we're talking about. Just being able to export these. Is, for instance, manufacturing. If manufacturing is here and NewScale, they wanted to build in Utah, we could export out. Is what I understood.
I think the other concept here was we're uniquely positioned in Virginia that we have the port resources that are already available. That for the growth that is going to be seen globally, not just in the U.S. or in Virginia, there's an opportunity if we can, site the infrastructure or build on the existing infrastructure that's already here. It can become an export hub, and so I think that's really what we were getting at there, Sean. Because if you think about it, the market in the U.S. is still being defined. We're hoping that it's going to be growing, but the global market is a much bigger pie.
So what are the rules around that? I mean, I'm just wondering, is that a complete ball of thorns itself? That's all I was asking.
I don't think it is. I mean, obviously there is going to be, depending on where the export market is, right? Depending on what country it is, there's always the export control and regimes that have to be followed and all that. But I don't think that would necessarily present a challenge that would be unique to Virginia as opposed to anywhere else in the U.S. So I think that's something that can be managed.
True.
Agreed. And one of the things that would explain to me on the ports is that, for instance, Puerto Rico, if they wanted an SMR, our ports from Virginia are a lot easier to get to Puerto Rico than going out of Washington State. So we have better access here to countries that are low income and they may be in need. That's how it was explained to me.
Okay. Other comments?
I have one more.
Great, go for it.
So I was intrigued by the education bit, as you might guess, and it calls out nuclear engineers, and for obvious reasons. But I wondered, is the word scientist dangling out there by itself? Is it a nuclear scientist that people have in mind, or is it any science, or what do we mean when we say nuclear engineers and scientists?
Honestly, you don't read anything into it. If you want, add whatever you would like.
It means whatever I want.
Honestly, there was nothing. I mean, I took that language from another document, and so we can adjust that as we need to.
I think I had that, Bill, I think I had that in my survey questionnaire, and I think my intention was to say nuclear engineers and nuclear scientists, but that's just me.
Well, just like that, just like magic, it now says nuclear scientists.
Okay. Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
And maybe it's in here again. I think Bob said earlier, I've read this once this morning and probably need to read it a few more times. April, do we discuss in here, or as far as like jobs impact? I mean, I know there's no actual numbers, but in terms of the economic benefit and job creation and sort of that whole element of what, actually deploying something in the state could mean for the state or the region.
Briefly, we mention it, but we're vague. There's no specific numbers.
I wouldn't think we'd have a number, an actual fine point number, or even a guesstimate wouldn't be fair. Not at this stage, I get that. I'm just thinking, and I'll read it, and if others have thoughts, obviously that's a benefit to the state itself, and, for just sheer jobs creation and what comes out of it. So I don't know if that can be teased out in such a way, as far as economic benefit down the road.
Scott, I think it's either it's page 13. Yeah, it's the last page. April did include some data points on some of the economic indicators and different, let's call it opportunities within the market. The jobs piece, it's kind of depends on what you're looking at, right? Because the jobs around Vogel 3 and 4 versus, the steady state jobs of an operating reactor versus what, an SMR or even a microreactor, they might look slightly different. But if you all have any data on that, I think it's always good to include because I think it's a good story.
Yeah, I would any data I would love, but like I said, we vaguely mentioned job creation, but we could call it out a little bit more.
Yeah. Did NEI include, and I know they commented, and I'm just wondering if they tend to have those kinds of numbers. I don't know what they would have that's of value to this specifically here, but.
I can ask. I mean, they have not seen this document yet. I would, I let you all be the first to preview.
And I just noticed they're
an exclusive group.
Well, I noticed they're in the acknowledgement, so
they are because they provided comment on the strategic plan itself.
Yeah.
So but we can look at seeing what they have if there's anything that's is workable.
Okay, great. So if there aren't any other specific comments now, like we said, we would like to continue receiving input. Grant, I have a question for you. Is it best for individual members to consolidate comments to Brandy, or can they send them directly to April? I just want to make sure we're following the right steps here as we look to receive comments in about 10 days or so.
I think my suggestion is probably send it to Brandy.
Okay, great. So as you heard there, so please, if you have comments or edits that you can provide by September 5th, if you will send those to Brandy, and then she can help consolidate those and get those to April, and we will go from there. And then the plan, like I said, the plan from here is to incorporate additional edits. The stakeholders who provided comments will have an opportunity, if they haven't already, to take a look and provide some additional input. And we will, April will be looking to consolidate and finalize the document later in September. And then we will have another chance to take a look at it and vote for approval to send along to the governor and the legislature per the legislation. So with that, we will have an opportunity later. We're going to talk a little bit about meeting schedule and all that, but the plan would be for our next meeting in September for it to be very focused just on a review of the final document and an opportunity to ensure we have a quorum and vote on approval. And then we will look at our regular fourth quarter meeting later in the year. So with that, I just thought we would go around and there's a couple legislative things that I wanted to just make sure everybody was aware of, because I think they're important. And Scott, feel free to jump in here because I know you're tracking a lot of these things as well. But in the National Defense Authorization Act, there was actually the Senate version of the bill did include elements of the NELA legislation, the Nuclear Energy Leadership Act, It did not include the power purchase agreements, but it did have, the formal authorization of the demonstration projects, the portions around fuel, and high-assay LEU. So it was a really good outcome. I would say thanks to our Virginia senators who were supporting the inclusion in the defense bill. There was a bipartisan group of, I think, 20 senators that included that. It was not included in the House bill. There are a lot of reasons for that, but I think there's a good chance of success when they go to conference in September and actually look at passing that legislation. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight was the policy change that was enacted at the Development Finance Corporation. For those of you who are following this, you'll know this already, but DFC is a new organization that really folds in some elements of OPIC and other development finance within the U.S. government, not including Export-Import Bank. But they changed their policy on financing of nuclear energy projects abroad so that they now will be looking at financing those projects. And if you've followed the news a little bit the past couple of days, the Department of Energy is already in discussions and looking at where they can deploy this new tool with some of the developing countries that are looking at nuclear projects. So that's really positive. We'll keep you posted as for those that are interested. The DFC is going to be doing a workshop at some point on their new program, so we can make sure to get that around when it's announced. But beyond that, unless other folks have other legislative items they wanted to bring up or have any other updates, we can have those now.
Tom, the only thing I would add to the legislative report is, while the Senate hasn't marked up their FY21 appropriations bills yet for any bills, the House mark did include $240 million for ARD. Tom, maybe you could finish my.
Yeah, I got you. No, but it's true. We are the appropriations process is moving forward. Like Scott was saying, that the House has passed their bill. They included the same funding as last year for the advanced reactor demonstration projects. The Department of Energy is in the middle of the solicitation for that program, so it's really on good footing. And I believe the Senate, who actually originated the program, they are still very supportive as well. So it's in a good place when we do get to a final bill on appropriations. Great. Are there any other updates from members on company news or universities? Any of their news that they want to share with the group?
Yeah, Tom, I've got one. It's about Bailey. And I mentioned this to Brandy, but in terms of going into next year, I am going to be retiring from the CAR at the end of this year. And my position on this authority is tied to that organization. So I'm assuming that means that I'll be stepping down or need to step down from this group, and I guess we'll just need to address, because I think I also hold the position of secretary.
Okay.
So that's something that needs to be addressed between now and the end of the year as to what that means and how we go about that.
Great. Yeah, Bob, that's a good reminder. I think for our Q4 meeting, we'll put that on the agenda to make sure we have those selections. Great. And congrats on retirement.
Looking forward to it.
Anyone else?
I'll make a quick announcement. This is Sean Agnew here at UVA. We just received approval from the SHEV, the Schools and Higher Education Board here in Virginia, to launch a material science major at the undergraduate level. We've been doing so at the graduate level for about 50, 60 years, and now offering a bachelor's in the field. And this department is where most of the folks who care about nuclear engineering and if you will, reside at UVA at this time. So we're excited to have a new offering into this space.
That's great. Thanks, Sean. Okay. So, and then I think, Sean, you had mentioned you're going to send Brandy some updates for the the asset inventory. Are there any other updates in the inventory? If folks could take a look at that when they get a chance and send anything to Brandy, we can keep that up to date. And then the only other thing is, please be on the lookout. Brandy's going to send out a doodle poll here in the next day so that we can look at getting a final, just quick meeting on the agenda towards the end of September, so that we can approve the final strategic plan before it's submitted. So take a look at that. We do, just like today, we do need a quorum so we can actually vote. But are there any other comments or questions from the authority members? And Brandy, was there anything on your end that we needed to follow up on?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered everything. The only thing I did want to mention is all of the meeting materials will be provided on the Venica website at the end of this meeting. I'll get those posted as quickly as possible.
Great, thank you.
Tom, I have one more thing. Everyone, please get me your edits. The only way to make this document well-rounded, and remember, this is our plan to the state for the next 4 years, is we really need your input. So please give that to us. September 5th will give me plenty of time to get this turned around and get it back to you all. Thank you.
Yes, agreed. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, with that, we will go to public comments. I think, I don't know if we can do the hand raise process with participants, but if you would please, if you have a public comment, would you please announce yourself beforehand, and you can take it away.